What's up? So we're going to be doing a quick review today on the Cloud EPL and comparing it to the Surefire X300 Turbo. So the Cloud EPL has 1200 lumens, 52,000 candela, while the Surefire has 650 lumens and 66,000 candela. And before we get any further into this review, I'm not affiliated with either one of these companies. I bought all this with my own money. The footprint for these lights is roughly the same. The EPL is a little bit taller, while the X300 is a little bit wider. And the bevel on the EPL is larger in diameter. So the mounting system is essentially the same. You have a mounting interface, and then you just have a cross bolt that tightens everything to the rail. And looking at the switches, I feel the EPL is a little more intuitive with the push buttons instead of these switches that you have to push down on and they tilt to the side like that. Now, this Surefire X300 does have momentary when you push it in, but for the constant, it's a little more intuitive in my opinion with the EPL since you just push it and release. And then for the momentary on the EPL, you push and hold. The EPL uses an 18350C rechargeable battery, while the X300 Turbo uses two 123A lithium ion batteries. The EPL runs for 40 minutes, while the X300 runs for an hour and a half. Both of these lights are IPX7 water resistant. The EPL should drop into most duty holsters with a TLR1 X300 footprint. Another thing I want to touch on very quickly is fitment. The X300 fit very tightly to my rail, no play whatsoever. But the Cloud Defensive, it had some forward and back play, and it had what I like to call a roll. So I could roll it from side to side like this and move it back and forth. It wasn't significant, but it was enough for me to find it an issue. I prefer a tight, snug fit. So what I did was I took some electrical tape and I went right around the interface. Starting here, I went up, over, and down the other side of the interface to prevent that forward and back motion. And then on my gun itself, I went over the rail with some electrical tape. That way there wasn't any more space for that roll to occur. So now that I've remounted the EPL to my Glock 19, you can see there's no play in it, as I mentioned earlier. No forward and back movement and no roll. And I also made sure to torque this to 20 inch-pounds instead of 25, considering I put electrical tape on the rail, just to make sure I don't squeeze anything too tight since there's less space to consume. There doesn't seem to be any binding on the recoil spring, so we're good to go. And because I do have an aftermarket Glock 19 Gen 3 frame, that could be playing a factor here, but considering the X300 Turbo fit nice and snug, I don't think that's the cause. The torque value for this EPL is 3 times higher than it is for the X300. I find it odd that there was any play in the first place. The EPL, the directions say to torque it to 25 inch-pounds, while the X300 is to be torqued to 8 to 9 inch-pounds. This is my Tenacore Malice Sole appendix inside the waistband holster, and it's for a Glock 19 with an X300. We have fitment, we have retention, smooth draw. One thing I like to mention is I had to adjust these two screws right here, and you can see how loose they are. They're barely threaded through here on the other side. Because this bevel on the EPL is wider, it was really, really tight at first because I did have this adjusted for the X300. So I had difficulty inserting. And then when I went to draw, it would give me a wedgie because it would yank my pants up. But adjusting these screws has allowed me to use the EPL in this holster. Now, my only thing is, these screws are really loose. I did some dry fire practicing, and I noticed that they would start to back out. And I haven't tightened them, which is why they're still loose like this, and I can just spin them with my finger. So if anything, I'm going to have to figure out the thread pitch and then get some new screws that are slightly longer that can fill this gap, and I'll throw some Loctite on them just to make sure they don't start to back out. All right, now on to the fun part. About to get these out in the darkness and see how they compare to each other, and we'll also see the general performance of the EPL. Let's get out and touch some grass. Here we have the cloud EPL. That tree line straight ahead is roughly 180 meters away, and by the time I shine the light to the left, that tree line is roughly 80 meters away. Here's the X300, same spot, same distances. Here they are side by side. EPL is on the left, X300 is on the right. Here's the EPL at roughly 40 meters, X300 at 40 meters. EPL, X300. Another side by side, EPL is on the left, X300 is on the right. Here's the EPL at 20 meters, shining into this easement. X300 in the same spot at the same distance. EPL, X300. EPL, X300. Here's the EPL at about 140 meters where those trucks are sitting. X300, same spot, same distance. EPL, X300. EPL, X300. Here's a side-by-side at about 25 meters. EPL is on the left, X300 is on the right. That hotspot on the EPL is roughly 2 times the size of the hotspot on the X300. Here's the EPL. Here's the X300. Here's another side-by-side, EPL on the left, X300 on the right. Here's a quick test to see if these lights can defeat high beams and illuminate the interior of the car. We're at about 25 meters, and neither light passes the test. So I'm going to move closer until the interior of my car is illuminated. We're now about 15 meters away from the car, and the interior is illuminated with the EPL. Now let's try the X300, and it illuminates the interior also. Alright, so conclusion. One thing my mother used to ask me when I was a child and I would buy something is if I was satisfied with my purchase. And I must say, I am satisfied with my purchase of this EPL. I would buy another EPL before I bought another X300, and I have 2 of these already. My only gripe with the EPL was a fitment, but as you can see, I've remedied that. And electrical tape is cheap and abundant, so if I ever need to replace electrical tape, that wouldn't cost me much of anything. It is a new weapon light, so holsters will become available for it over time. You just have to be patient. Hopefully, it'll drop right into what you have currently. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Like, follow, subscribe. Stay tuned for more.